Hey, everybody, welcome to this bonus episode of Tearing It Up podcast. I did this with Meg Carney of Outdoor Minimalist Podcast. So this was just a fun recap of Outdoor Media Summit. We were both there this year. I met her there in person last year. She's been on my podcast. So it was fun to get to chat to somebody about the experience rather than just give you a solo recap. So you get to hear both of our perspectives on the event, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, this is going to be a lot different than my usual episodes, at least on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. We do have a guest, but it's going to be more like, I don't know, just kind of a fun chat about our experiences at the Outdoor Media Summit, which happened at the end of October. So, for I guess Taryn's listeners that don't know me, I'm Meg from the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. And then Taryn is here with me as well. If you want to introduce yourself for my
Yeah.
listeners.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm Taryn of Tearing It Up podcast. So I love this because it is a little more my structure of just kind of free flowy. We'll see where the conversation goes. But I'm excited that we get to collab and speak to both of our audiences.
So, the Outdoor Media Summit, this is the second year that I've gone, and it's definitely my favorite outdoor conference, I think, because of the size. Because it's only like 200 people, it's always in a different city, and it's usually like a smaller outdoor town. It's like last year was in Missoula, and this year's in Durango. Is this your second year too?
It's my third.
Your third?
Yeah. Yeah, my first one was, let's see, in 2022, I think. I think I skipped 23. I think it was 2022, they were in Tahoe, so it was just, like, our own backyard, and the person I worked for then, I was a full-time employee at Tahoe Mountain Sports, and the owner, my boss, he was pals with Kenji, who helps put on the show, and they got connected, and so I ended up kinda going last minute, and then the next year, I don't know, I wanted to go, but I just wasn't able to make it happen in 23, and then I made it to Missoula and then Durango this year because I agree with you. It is like one of my favorites because I've done a handful of trade shows, different like regional and national and stuff. And there hasn't been something like this, like for media. That's a good learning and networking opportunity and the connections with brands with the New Year's speed date that they have. So it's a pretty cool mix.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why I like it because it is targeted to media. I mean, it's in the name Outdoor Media Summit. And since it started as like the bloggers conference, I think it's really cool that there's traditional media, there's podcasts like us, and then also YouTubers, influencers. There's so many different sectors to media to be connecting with and also the brands. So, yeah, I mean, we could just kind of debrief chronologically, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I think that works.
Well, I went to the campout, which I don't think you went to the campout because you came on Monday. And
Yes, yeah, I just
so
had to think about I'm like, "Wait, when did it?" I got all mixed up from the trade show I was after. It's like, "Did it start Sunday or Monday? How did we start this?"
well, usually, like, the full conference starts on Monday, but there is a camp out on Sunday night. I don't know how long they've been doing this. I know they did it last year, and this year I went, and it was interesting. We weren't actually camping. We stayed at the Purgatory Ski Resort in their lodging. So that was cool, and they had a really great dinner. I showed up just for the dinner part, but they had events before that with some of the brands, like Dometic. It's the only one I can remember right now, but the meal was cool because the chef, she was from Australia or New Zealand, something like that, and she moved to the United States, and she does all campfire cooking. And so the day before, she went to the farmer's market, and she got all the things that she would need for this meal, and then while everyone was kind of mingling and stuff, she was cooking with the Dometics and over the fire, and so people could kind of see that and interact with her in that way. And I love food, so, like, any sort of event that centers around food and the meal and the cooking is very exciting to me, and I guess I would go to the campout again because it's a smaller group of people, a lot more brands if you want, like, more of that personalized conversation, but I don't think it's necessary per se.
And, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. I've talked to a couple people who seem to not know for sure, like Melissa, who's with Women Who Explore, went this year to the campout, and we hadn't quite figured out whether the campout was like an invite only thing because it is pretty small, and whether that's to like speakers and award winners because that's what she was. But this year, you were just attending, right? You weren't speaking or anything.
No, I wasn't speaking and I didn't get an award, so I'm not sure how I ended up going, but I mean, they asked me. They asked me if I wanted to go to the camp out as well, and I said, "Well, yeah, that sounds great. I'll just add that to my ticket." Yeah, but I have no idea. I would assume that it is designed for, like, the, like, smaller cohort of
Mhm.
people, of, like, award winners and stuff. Because like, now that I think about it, everyone else there did get an award.
Yeah, it's interesting because 'cause I'm curious how that yeah, exactly what the how you get in. If it's invite only, and I do like the idea of it being a small kinda cohort thing, but then it is kind of like, "Well, how do I get to go?" You know? Like, because that's a fun part of the experience. We get to hang out a lot throughout the summit in different ways. They have a lot of activities. Yeah, it'd be interesting to figure out how you even can get in on that side of it.
Yeah, that's a question for Yoon and Erica, so if you're listening to this, please let us know.
Yeah, yes, reach out, let us know how we get in on the camp part or, what to tell people if they ask about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, after that, we had breakfast and stuff the next morning, but there was a long break in between because I think I left the resort at, like, 9 a.m., and so I got to the DoubleTree in Durango at, like, 10, but we can't check in till 4 p.m., and then the New Year's speed day didn't start till 1 p.m., and so I was like, "What do I do?" It was a very awkward time frame. I mean,
Yeah.
I went and got lunch somewhere, and then I hung out with a couple of people, mostly with Cade from Ori magazine. He lives in Seattle. His magazine's, like, very, like, artsy, travel, outdoor focused, and it's just a physical magazine, which is cool.
Cool.
But we met last year, and so we just found a little corner table in the lobby, and we're both on our computers just working for, like, 5 hours, which was perfect, but it was, like, an awkward time period where I was like, "I feel like there could have been an event or, like, an excursion or something, but if most people are just arriving, then it makes sense to just kinda leave it as is."
Yeah, the New Gear speed date too, like, I think the timing is interesting from the camp out to then that not starting till later, and yes, you get the gap because people are showing up to the summit for the first time the first day. So you don't wanna start the New Gear speed date super early. I think the timing and all that is still kind of interesting because the New Gear speed day is long.
Yeah, it's like 4 hours, I think.
Yeah,
I only stayed for 3, I will
that's
say. I didn't do the
yeah.
full speed date period because I got really overwhelmed, and also there's, like, some brands that aren't super relevant to me or what I usually talk about, and so I kinda skipped them.
Yeah, I love the idea of it, and I think it's one of those things that will be hard to you're not gonna please everybody, right? So I think that they're doing a good job of changing things up and trying to figure out what format works best for everybody, and they wanna give everybody the opportunity to see all these brands. So the New Gear Speed Day, I guess, will tell you all what it's about, and that's actually connecting the media to the brands. That's kind of the first and really only opportunity you get to directly interact with the brands there at Outdoor Media Summit because the rest of the summit is like different speaking sessions. And sure, there's people from brands and opportunities to chat and network and ask questions. But New Year's Speed Day is laid out almost like a trade show where the brands are there with their booths and their products. And then you, as the media, get to go and you're talking about the product directly for those who write like gear reviews or product reviews, anything like that. So I love having that. But to your point, not every brand resonates with the things that I talk about, especially being like women focused. When I talk about product, it certainly isn't only a women owned and women only brand. My guests on my podcast are women only, but I can talk about a brand that might be male led, but they have a women's side. But at that show, there's a lot of different product there. And again, just might not be in the categories that I'm interested in. So trying to get around and wanting to just skip to the ones you want to, that's not really how they set it up. Which again, I understand why, but it's interesting to figure out how it can work for more people.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if Yoon listens to this, I'm sorry, but for an example, like, Nemo equipment is usually there, and Kate Ketchuk, who does their PR, also did the PR for Forever Chemicals, and so I've done a lot of different things with the brand she works with, like Paramo, Nikwax, Nemo, all that stuff, and so I spent, like, 20 minutes just at their station, which you're only supposed to spend 10 minutes, and you're supposed to rotate to each brand in that way, but it is really hard because this is not a trade show.
Mhm.
And so, like, how do you make sure that there is an opportunity for brands to talk about what's upcoming, not only for this current fall season, but then the spring season? So
Mhm.
then people people don't have to go to like OMA or another event where these same brands are going to be showing the same things. I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I think it's very overstimulating for me.
Yeah.
And so I'll likely never stay the full time period, but I also get to meet some smaller brands that maybe wouldn't be able to afford a ticket for a bigger trade show. I don't know, there was a couple brands there that was the first time that I met them or like heard about them.
Same, and it's interesting because, well, I feel like this happens even at trade shows or something. You see a brand and you're like, "Oh, I haven't heard of this," but then they'd been around like 10 years. One of those for me was Hollow, and that's where I ran into you, was at Hollow Socks, and I hadn't heard of them, and then all of a sudden, since coming home, a week and a half or so later, I see this woman on Instagram who is like a fitness influencer gal post about them, and she held hers up. They were kinda ragged, but she was, like, praising them, and then later that day, I was at a sports bar in Truckee, and a commercial for them came on, and I was like, "That's crazy." Like, I've never heard of them, and then all of a sudden, these different aspects, they're showing up, and yes, they'd been around a while, but also, like I said, trade shows can be really, really, really expensive or hard to get into. Like, I was at GOA, Grassroots Outdoor Alliance Connect show, and that show is pretty particular too. So that's one that's even a little bit harder, I think, to be a part of, and it gears towards specialty outdoor. So for brands navigating the landscape and trying to get in front of media, like that's why I love the summit, right? We're trying to help out some of these brands, get them into the consumer hands, and trade shows are more for buyers and retailers. But I think we all kind of do belong in the same, we intersect in so many ways, but there's not many opportunities for media to come talk to these brands. So even if they are able to get on these larger trade shows, they're fighting for their lives to get into a retail store.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like larger trade shows that I've gone to as media, I mean, I have to set up appointments ahead of time to even get a chance to talk to a brand. And so if you're a more popular brand, those are going to be harder conversations to get. But then the smaller brands are fighting for the attention in the same way, where it's like, well, I've never heard of you. Why would I go talk to you? I don't know.
Like you said, it's a cool idea. It's a great idea. I love it. But I think that each year it needs to, yeah, just continue to evolve in how it can have the most impact for everybody involved. And there's times that I do think maybe if it was set up just kind of longer, open door, 10, 11 to 5, which I know for the brands, that's probably, they're like, hell no, I don't want 7 hours in my booth. But if it were more open door kind of turn policy that you can go see who you want and talk to them about something specific, because in the format that it's 10 minutes each, I think the brand kind of has to, every time, they're saying the same pitch over and over about certain product. But if it was more open, then it could allow them to really talk to each individual with what resonates with them out of the line that they're presenting. And I don't know, ultimately maybe reach more people in those different ways. Sorry, again, Yoon and Erica, not trying to critique. We love the idea, but yeah, still trying to figure out how it fits in our own ways, I think the best.
I kind of just end up talking about whatever I want if I am the only person there. But like
Yeah.
with the Hollow Socks example, we just heard their pitch because
Yep.
there was 5 of us. And so, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I know that it works for a lot of reasons. So
Exactly.
I do love the concept and I do get to meet a lot of new people and see a lot of new things. So
Yes.
not opposed to it, but
Definitely not.
Monday, that is really the main thing for media,
Mhm.
is just the New Year's speed date, and then we have dinner mixer in the PM, which I only stayed at for like an hour, but the food was amazing because it was like a little food truck setup, which was so cool. So we could try a bunch of different things. But I know you probably stayed longer than I did.
I did surprisingly though, because I was pretty tired too, and that's the other thing with the stimulation rather from the New Year's speed date, like, it's a lot. You're trying to hit 23 different brands, 10 minutes each if you're going through the whole 4 hours, and then going into dinner where everyone's there seeing everybody. It's like, it's a big, big day. So I didn't think I was gonna stay there very long, but I mean, I ended up just staying posted at the one table, with Melissa from Women Who Explore, and we talked a few people rotated through our table, so that was nice to be stationary and have new people come to us, because I was like, I definitely don't have it in me to kind of walk around and meet everybody today. But it was really cool, like you said, the different food trucks and having just different options there for so many people, and I just love too being in these smaller mountain towns where you get to go to these places that the community actually really connects with, like, we're not just stuck in the hotel in the conference room and having something be catered to you, you actually get to go out on the town and see what it's all about, and I think that is just another great way to bring media to it and, like, really put the real life aspect to it of, like, this is what's happening in the town with these products, and I don't know, it just makes it feel a lot more authentic.
It almost feels to me like a really large press trip, which I know that's
Mhm.
a good comparison because you're like, we're going out on these excursions, but we're also doing like group things. And then we get to go to local restaurants. And so that's kind of what I would compare it to.
Yeah.
But after that, so Tuesday is like the main day of the event, right? Like that's
Yep.
like the only full day, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was cool because it was in the train station museum, or what was it called?
Durango Narrow Gauge Train Museum, DNG Train Museum.
Wow, you have a good memory.
Kind of. Like, a little bit, like, I can see that on things, and actually DSNG, I think it was Durango Silverton Narrow Gauge, Train Museum, which was super cool. Oh, one of the speakers, I can't remember exactly, Conservation Alliance, maybe, one of the guys from there, but anyway, whoever it was, I think, described this place perfectly, and that it was like you're in your grandpa's basement where the thermostat is not on, like, it's on cool, and there's all these crazy eclectic things around, like all these different toy train setups and, oh my god, like animal what
Oh,
is
yeah,
the
they had the animal heads from, like,
yeah.
elk and big game. I don't know.
Yes, what is the taxidermy.
Yeah, okay, there we
Like,
go.
it starts with a T.
Taxidermy, good.
Yeah, it
And it had some
just
old cars there too. Yeah.
yeah. Old cars and a bunch of, like, military things. There were, like, old guns and things and people in uniforms and stuff around, like, just so many things that felt like from the start of Durango, and, yeah, it did feel like grandpa's basement. They were like, "What is all this crazy stuff, and why is it so cold?"
Yeah, why is everyone in their puffy jacket? But I need to go back when it's not during the conference because I wanna see how much stuff they had to move to
Yeah.
fit 200 people in that building.
That's a really good point. The whole middle was, like, all of our tables where we had the keynote speakers, and some of the speaking sessions took place in there too, and the meals and whatnot. So I didn't even think about, like, what is normally in the middle here? Because to think about them having to move any of that stuff, like, off to the sides would just be wild. So, yeah, I wonder if they kinda keep that space open or something for activities. I don't know
I
how
know,
many
yeah.
it was a full stage, but it was really cool. Way more engaging, I think, than just again, like, hotel conference room where it's just kinda boring and bland and felt a different kinda energy in there, and maybe it was just because the first day was chilly, so you had to stay awake, but it was, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think other things. So because Tuesday is kind of like the full day, we have like the keynote speaker in the morning and at lunch, and then a bunch of breakout sessions with panelists. So I do like the format that they use for speakers because you get to hear from multiple people in the panels, and then there's like a Q&A after they speak. So I think they usually have like 30-ish or 40 minutes to actually talk as a group, and then they do the Q&A after. But the morning keynote was from OnX, the mapping company, and then they were very related to the second day's or the Wednesday keynote with Conservation Alliance. So I thought it was cool that there was a pretty big focus on advocacy, which I don't think is typical for the Outdoor Media Summit, but this was relevant to public lands policy because, I mean, do I need to say anything
Yeah.
about public lands? I know we talk about public lands every Friday on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, so our listeners are very familiar with all that. I know, Taryn, you cover it
Mhm.
during a lot of like the bigger events that have been going down. So I think that that was really nice for me to see because I think the framing of this conference is a lot on how to market better and how to make more money. And advocacy doesn't always like fit into that narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that, and it's interesting too, just having talked with Em of from articles in common about this topic and conservation and media and brands and how we all really can work together. So I thought it was cool that it was part of the conversation, and it is being recognized that it's important to talk about and to share and, look at the difference that it makes when we are speaking up on behalf of this. But I know that we could obviously get into the weeds on like exact messaging, but I think the overall mission is there, right? And there's some things we can tweak for sure, but it was really cool to have both those keynotes, like you said, be very related. And the format of everything too, I think just keeps everybody engaged, where you have that keynote in the morning, you can let it kind of sink in, and then you're going from different sessions that you get to choose. And just hearing from so many different people and perspectives is something that is not easy to pull off for an event of this size, even though this is at 200 people, not that big in the grand scheme. But again, being able to hear from so many different people is not easy to pull off.
If we think about the panels then, which ones did you go to? Did you have, like, a favorite panel that you sat in on? There were a couple that I felt like were more relevant to things that I needed to be working on and learning, but I'm interested to hear from you.
This year of the 3 years that I've gone, I think was harder for me to find those things that resonated with what I am working on or towards right now. And though I think, again, the format is great, they keep it short enough that you can pay attention, and they have different speakers at all 10 to 15 minutes, different perspectives. But from the titles or descriptions of things, I think, oh, that's great. That's for me. And then when I went into it, it felt like the conversation was actually speaking a little bit more to a brand. And I don't know if that just happened to be my luck with the things that I chose, but it made me think that I wish somewhere in the description or something that they could let you know kind of who they might be speaking more to. And I don't know if the speakers, I mean, you might know from speaking last year, like if you tell the folks at OMS like what like give them your speech kind of spiel first, and they look at it and y'all can decide together like, yes, I'm speaking more to the creator or brand. And everyone, again, there's three different speakers, so one person might be speaking more to a brand and another more to a creator. But I think making that a little more obvious could be a little helpful, because I went to a few sessions that I was like, oh, that's a good one for me. And then it didn't end up really being that way. Or it could just be, I don't know, a little vague. One I really wanted to go to was the changing format of outdoor B2B media, which from that title, I think it could be pretty obvious that like it is going to talk to brands. But from the creator side, and knowing two of the speakers who are also on podcasts, I thought that maybe there could be a better mix in there of how the creators then can leverage that to work with brands because of that changing landscape. And I also just really wanted to hear from Doug Schnitzbahn, which unfortunately he wasn't able to make it and was sick. But at the same time was the embracing negative comments one, which Anastasia Allison from Cooler Cloth and Miranda Webster, and I'm not super familiar with the other speaker, Phil, but I would have loved to hear from those two ladies. And yeah, in that title, I think that speaks more to creators. But I was torn between the two, and that's what's hard about so many options is I'm like, which one is gonna better fit me? And I've hopped around before, and then I always feel bad missing one person. So at times you're like, there's too much to choose from. So in the 2 years past, I felt that I walked away with a little bit more from the speaking sessions than I did this year, unfortunately. But I still would never like regret going by any means. Was there one that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good gauge, like, as good of a gauge as you do for it, because last year I spoke on 2 panels, so I missed those time slots to hear other people speak, and so this year I was just like, "Wow, I'm learning so much," because I
Yeah.
haven't gone to, or I missed so many panels the year before. But I do wanna address one thing that you said about, like, how they plan with the speaker because, well, when I did it, we did multiple meetings as a group about the topic, and then we have to present our information and our slides and stuff ahead of time to Erica. And so it is very like curated and designed and well thought out on their end. I do think you would have really liked the one with Anastasia and Miranda. I was really excited for that because I get a lot of hate comments And I'm always like, I feel like I handle them decently, but I think their examples were really good. And then also, Anastasia touched a lot on kind of like how she reframes it in her mind and kind of like the mental health aspect of it and how she's been able to kind of maintain that and make it more into memeable or funny in terms of that. Because I think for their platform specifically, people are attacking them. And so it's the same for my platform is like people are attacking you as a person, not necessarily your brand idea. Where Phil, he was more on the brand side, which was also interesting to hear like how a brand addresses these things because you don't have as much freedom to speak how you really feel or like you don't want to get too political, etc. But I think there was a lot of good insight there, but also people are so mean on the internet is the main takeaway that I got.
Yes.
Standard, why are people so mean on the internet?
Yeah, and I really wanted to hear what the 2 ladies had to say, and I think that, I don't know, part of me was also, like, worried that almost, like, afraid, I guess, to go and think about, like, that negative part, put myself in this space of thinking about the negative aspect, and luckily, I haven't gotten too many negative comments or anything yet. I mean, my audience is still pretty small and on social, and I don't address the same kinda topics that you do. You put your stake in the ground, and I love that about you so much, and that's what is gonna make people say those mean things, and so I think that where I'm at right now, I just, like, yeah, luckily, I'm not in that space yet to get those, and I don't know, I think that, yeah, part of me, like I said, was almost a weird kind of afraid to, like, acknowledge that part or negative aspect of it at all, like, I don't even wanna think about the possibility of it or deal with it because I put one video out a couple years ago on TikTok, like, I have a few different accounts, and I was trying to create one for I call it the Pigpen compound. It's we live on raw land, we're trying to build a house, and so I was like, "Let's chronicle our journey here." And a bear broke into our trailer, tore the door off, and I put this video on TikTok, it got, like, 1,000,000 views and hundreds of comments that were so awful. People were so mean, and I got off that app for, like, a year because I've never had that kinda interaction with Instagram because it's been my small audience. So I was like, "Oh, actually, the thought of going viral or, like, dealing with those negative people again, I don't even wanna think about it because even though I knew in my heart and mind that the people who are saying the negative things really don't know dog shit about my situation, me as a person, or the fact that in Tahoe you can have a multi-million-dollar house and a bear will get into it. So all these comments of me being a stupid idiot who doesn't know what I'm doing because of course a bear is going to get in, you don't leave food in your camper. Other people came like saying, like, what did you miss? She said she lives there. It doesn't make sense to empty out their entire house of food if they're going to work or down to town for a half hour. Like this can happen in any given moment. I just couldn't handle it. And so, yeah, I think it was almost like a PTSD thing where I'm like, I don't even want to think about going back to that space where, like you said, people are attacking you as a person, not this brand that maybe you work for, but making you feel so bad and dumb and less than. It brought up some weird feelings for me that I think I'm literally working through in this moment, realizing like why I was like, oh, I'd rather go over here and listen to the B2B marketing.
No, that's really interesting. I do think that that is kind of the double-edged sword with virality is you're gonna reach a whole new audience, and that whole new audience could be people who oppose literally your entire message and everything that you're trying to say, or they purposefully are misunderstanding it. So, I don't know. You can't please everyone, but I do think that if you can bring yourself to do it, it would be worth listening to later when they do send out their recordings because I think they had a lot of good insights into, like, how to actually handle that, especially because they do have much larger platforms than you and I do, and so they're dealing with it on a much larger scale.
Yeah, I definitely will keep my eye out for it and listen to the recording of it because, when people can give you their experience before you've had it, I think it's so helpful to go into that and kind of have some helpful knowledge of how you can deal with it ahead of time. It's like being preventative. You know it's going to rain outside, so put the jacket on. So it's like, okay, with like what we're doing, putting our own thoughts and feelings out there into the world that not not everyone's gonna agree. So at some point, someone's gonna come back at you, and even just knowing that other people are out there dealing with it gives you that certain level of calmness in it, and just knowing you're not alone through that storm. So I will definitely give that a listen, especially hanging out with or hearing from Miranda more too, 'cause I didn't know too much about her, but I'd seen her channel and things that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I really want to know." And from hearing other people's feedback of it, that their takes were pretty different on how they handle it. So again, not everyone's solution is gonna be yours, but you can pick and pull from everyone's to make it work for you.
Yeah, I was surprised how different they approach things, but I think that was good to see that multiple approaches can be effective, and it really depends on the person. But I'm trying to think of the other panels that I went to. The one that rubbed me the wrong way, which people will not be surprised by this, is the AI one. Shocker. Um, but AI and media is really just a stab in the heart for a lot of creatives, I think. And I think it can be a very powerful tool to streamline production. But I also think that what is the point of being creative in certain capacities if you just are going to replicate or like offshoot it to a machine? And that actually was not my issue with the panel. My issue with the panel
I love it.
came from the brand side. So the brand that was speaking was called Alpaca, and I do think that their brand is really cool. Like this is kind of my first exposure to them and I want to learn more about them. They make really interesting more like urban bags, but they're going to be releasing some more outdoorsy focus bags. Like they have one hiking bag right now, but I know that during the speed date they were talking about branching into bike packing. So I'm interested to see how that develops because there's a lot of bike packing bags I don't like the design. But for his panel slot, he was talking about like from a small brand perspective, like how AI has helped them. And it made so much sense, like
Mhm.
logically in my brain. I was just like, yeah, customer service. You're answering the same questions over and over again. It makes sense that a chat bot would be doing that. But in my sustainability focus, I was like, AI, how are brands tracking this in terms of their energy output and water consumption? And are they communicating that to the customer? Because if I'm shopping from a brand, I want to know everything
Yeah.
because of my tism. So I'm like, I want to know. I want to know. And I want it to be in your sustainability report, but we didn't get to my question at the Q&A. We ran out of time. So I hopefully can follow up with him and just ask because they're very transparent on the sustainability side. And I'm wondering if this is just kind of in something brands are overlooking and not necessarily considering because they're more looking for like this is the employee output,
Mhm.
not the actual brand product. But I will say with the AI panel, the first speaker, she talked about like writing SEO, AI SEO,
Mhm.
which I knew about, but it wasn't something that I necessarily like considered strongly about like, oh, people are actually searching on ChatGPT for things. And so how do you get your work or like your podcasts, your blog posts, whatever, to propagate in those answers? So that was a really interesting like thought process because I just have been avoiding AI so much. And that's also not a good thing because
Yeah.
then I will be obsolete.
Yeah, but I mean, with what you do and what you talk about, it makes sense to kind of, again, have that stake in the ground of not wanting to fall into it. And so it's how do we work with it, use it when we know the kind of energy consumption it's taking? And I'm sure that's with every big innovation we've had in the industrial industry, everything. But obviously, sustainability wasn't really a conversation then. But you know what I mean? As things change, it's like the thing changes before we realize what the impact is. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to figure out what the impact would be before we start using or implementing the new thing. So I think the more education, at least there can be on it, and transparency, like you said, with brands or folks using it, of what we can see behind the curtain of what kind of consumption is it actually using and is that worth it? Is your ROI? And again, that's not even like hard to say whether that's worth it because then you're just putting money above saving the planet or whatever. So it's just a really interesting and tough conversation because it also, like you mentioned, this brand, Alpaca, being small, it has changed so many small brands and creators' lives in a way that, I mean, I use it to help me write show notes and put together some captions because trying to do all of the 100 million things when I don't get paid for my podcast, like barely, I've got one sponsor and hopefully get some more, but it is not paying the bills. It's not keeping the lights on or paying for itself in any way. So when I feel like I can save myself myself an hour, 2 hours, whatever of time, and or the fact that I wouldn't even be able to get this extra stuff done without it. It's very conflicting to me of how can I manage this? I didn't have this kind of output before. There's no way I would have been able to put a blog post up for every episode or get these show notes out within a few minutes of it summarizing my transcript beforehand, but I also do not want to rely on it. And I have a worry of ideally, I want to get to the point where I can bring people on as a team and have someone who helps me with this stuff. But I'm also a little bit worried of like, well, if I hire someone, how do I know that they're not outsourcing to AI too? So it's just, yeah, it's a very conflicting place, I think, for a lot of us out there who are trying to do anything like on our own.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, like, I don't want to seem like I'm casting judgment to the brand at all because I do agree that it has changed small creators, small brands. It's changed their life completely in like a lot of positive ways. And I've tried to figure out how to integrate it ethically, which there's
Mhm.
not really, there's not really a way to do that. But I was just like, well, is there a way that I can be using this that would improve and like help get the message out? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just like a lot of questions to be had around this because there aren't really a lot of regulations
Mhm.
for it and like where it's pulling the information and in terms of plagiarism and things like that. So I know it's a big topic that legacy media discusses and like other people that work in that media format will discuss because yeah, like when I went to university, you would get expelled for plagiarism. And now
Yeah.
they're like, well, just use ChatGPT for XYZ. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, I'm pretty sure that was like a huge no-no.
Yeah. Yeah, there is, like, you always got the threats of, "Oh, we run this through and make sure you didn't go to this website or that website." What, Spark Notes was huge for book reports and I mean, where it just summarized the book, right? But still, people are gonna copy and paste just from those summarized notes. But I think it was really cool that they did have the conversation there, and again, they're bringing it to, like, media attention, but there's so much Morgan M. comes to mind right away, having her in these conversations and just having a broader conversation about it, and I guess how to do it ethically, right? Instead of like, here's the good behind it and why you should be using it. I feel like there's a lot of topics like that, like why you should be using AI and how it will help you and this and that. But it's like, what about the conversations of kind of backing off of it? Like, how can we streamline our processes without relying on it so that we can all do what the outdoor industry says it does, which is like protect the places that we love and enjoy. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of room for those conversations to evolve. And I hope to see that happen next year at Outdoor Media Summit, more of those topics, but like a little bit broader than just using it as a tool and just the deeper conversation, the conflicting conversations of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I look for like more nuance in those conversations, and I'd like to see that presented in some of the panels like that. But AI is like a big rabbit hole, so I don't want to go too far
Yeah.
down. Like we already got kind of deep. But
Yeah.
after the lunch and stuff like that, we do an excursion on Tuesday afternoon. And the excursion that I did was what did I do?
Did you do the,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
digging?
okay. So, the excursion that I did was with Osprey and Goo and then the Durango, like, trail work organization that's in the area, and we just did trail maintenance on a section of the Colorado Trail. So, that was cool because we got to be active and be outside, and the fall colors were beautiful. The hike was stunning because it was, like, overlooking a valley with a stream, and we kinda broke off into smaller groups. I should have been a digger, but no one was taking the little, like, lopping tools to, like, cut branches, and so I was like, "Oh, I'll do this," because there's only, like, one other guy from the Durango crew that was lopping, and I was like, "I'll go with you," and then there really wasn't much to do. And so I was, like, mostly hiking and talking, which was fine, but I felt bad because I was like, "Well, I'm here to, like, contribute."
Okay, this is also something that was different from years past in the Outdoor Media Summit. These excursions versus the scavenger hunt that they've done the last few years. I was really excited to see this change because the scavenger hunt, that was another way for media to talk and interact with brands in a much funner way. You weren't necessarily like getting a pitch from them, but some of them might have had a product. But you spent 4 hours on this scavenger hunt going from station to station, like 8 to 10 different stations or something in it. So again, it was another like very stimulating activity. And so with the excursion focusing down on one activity with one brand where again, it wasn't actually focused on the brand, but it was about being outside and experiencing the activity. I think that was huge for everyone's just like mental capacity there. Like you get to actually go feel like you're exploring a bit of the area that you're in and connecting with people instead of kind of going around and getting like the different pitches. And again, we did some activities, but it was a long 3 or 4 hours after a full day of speaking and then going into like the evening dinner activity. There was literally no break. Whereas I feel like these excursions gave you a little bit more of a break. So I, however, didn't know about them until very late in the game. And Erica, thank goodness, sent me an email. It's like, you're not signed up for an excursion. I have these two things open. And one of them was pack rafting. It's like, I would love to do that. I think I'd been in a pack raft floating in an alpine lake in Alaska, but never much paddling. So this guy I dated like over 10 years ago got really into pack rafting. So we went a few places and he had his. That's why I'm like, I don't remember if I actually did, but I was, hell yeah, I want to go paddle down this river, the Anamisa River in Durango. And it was fun. It was so fun. I love the water, but very interesting being in that because so I am used to sea kayaking or paddle boarding. And in this raft, I sat pretty high. I was like, this is kind of weird, where I almost feel like I'm sitting on top of like a paddleboard rather than in a raft or kayak. And I was going to ask the gal we had a couple different guides. I was going to ask her if that was normal or if I should deflate my seat maybe a little bit because I'm not a small gal. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I just, have a little bit bigger body that I'm sitting higher. But I never did. And I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. I was also trying out their new raft, which is a flat water raft. So it was a little bit more shaped like a sea kayak, but also very different being a back raft, but longer like nose and tail versus just a kind of oval shaped raft. It was a great float, super easy calm. There was this tiny, tiny, tiny little drop thing that they told everyone about at the very end. They're like, you do not have to do it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, of course I'm going to do it. Like, I love this shit. But I also, of course, was the only one to flip. And even out of like people who had never been in a raft or had any like water experience, I flip over. And of course, there's a moment of like just pure embarrassment because people are like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yes, yes, I'm fine. Stood right up, whatever. The water wasn't that cold. It was the end of the trip. So it's like I had dry clothes with me I could change into, but said it took a bit because it was all strangers too. So I was just like, oh no, all these people think I'm just like a kook who doesn't know how to do anything. And it goes internally for me with like what people think or judge about my body and like I don't look like an athlete or this or that. So I went real quick into a dark hole, but I pulled myself out as quick. But I went back and I did it just fine. Came out like and no one saw that part. So that's the thing. I was one of the last one. Everyone watched me flip, but when I went to do it again, like no one's watching. So that just happens to me in a lot of things. I fall and I crash hard on some of the like most simple things, especially if a group of people I don't know are watching me.
I feel like that's always how it goes, though, but I'm glad you went back and did it a second time, and I will say when I was choosing excursions, I really badly wanted to do pack rafting, but then I took a step back and I was just like, "What's most on brand for you? You should go do that." But
Absolutely.
I had a lot of fun doing the, trail work, but I will say pack rafting is one activity that I have always wanted to try because I'm very into paddle camping in general and just, like, all forms of paddling, and so you've done it now, so you would
Yeah.
recommend it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, 'cause I love being on the water. I'm not normally, like, much of a river person. It's always been, like, lakes and oceans and, open water. Just from, like, where I've been and the experiences I've had, I am not opposed to river at all. I always wanted to get more into it, and there was so many times in my 20s that I was like, "Okay, well, next step is to go be a river guide." Like, I did this kinda guiding, that kinda guiding. I gotta go get on a river, and I just never made it down there because I got to Tahoe, and I ended up staying here for a decade and not continuing my path of jumping around like I thought I would, like I'd been doing up to this point. So I never became the river rat, but was always a water freak. So it was so fun. I would definitely recommend it. I did some sea kayak camping, so that was really fun. So yeah, the idea of paddle camping, bike packing, any sort of those things has been on my list. And these pack rafts are just so cool because I want to do a paddleboard camp trip around Lake Tahoe as well. But that's different. You're circumnavigating, going to shore shore, kind of pulling off there and not really having to carry that raft and portage or even hike out to some place and then go raft across somewhere. So I would love to do a pack rafting, like camping adventure.
Alright, we'll have to do one together. I
Yeah,
see a plan in
definitely.
our future. We're going to
Yeah.
go pack rafting, and it'll be amazing. Okay, well, what happened after the excursions? Oh, yeah, I
My
skipped.
favorite
I
part.
this part that I skipped.
And I think you would have been actually very glad that you did. So, our Tuesday night gathering dinner was on the train, on the Durango Silverton narrow gauge train that, has like been the same since the 1800s pretty much. And I was so excited when I found out we were going on the train. I could not wait for this part the entire time of the summit. It was an awesome experience. However, I think it was a little bit longer than anyone, even the organizers, maybe anticipated. We were on that train for about 4 hours. And for me to, we started closer to 7, so, like, the sun was down, it was, like, pretty much dark when we started, so that was kind of a bummer because I would have really loved to see the scenery that it goes through, but I still got to chat with a lot of people on the train. It was super fun for me to, like, you got to walk across all the carts, and there was a point in time we were at the end cart just standing out on the railing or on the platform rather, like, right behind the engine, so that was really cool because I just love trains, but, yeah, it kinda was a bummer that you didn't get to actually see the views so much, and by the time I got off, they gave us a box lunch or dinner to go take on the train, and I'd set mine on my seat to go get a drink, and when I came back, it was gone, so I didn't get to eat, and by the time I got back to the hotel, it was, like, almost 11, and there's no food in Durango. It's very much like Truckee. Everything's done by 9 p.m. except McDonald's. Yeah, so that kinda sucked, but I was just super stoked to be on that old-timey train.
Yeah, I am kinda bummed that I didn't get to do a train ride because I also love trains, and I do think, like, if I go back to Durango, I would love to just, like, spend more time downtown and, like, actually explore the museum and, like, do, like, a daytime train tour that is not 6 hours long.
Yes. So I did stay in Durango a couple days after the event, mostly just to ride my bike, but I had a moment on the train that I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be here for, 2.5 more days. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow," whatever, and do a daytime ride because I think they do tours throughout the day, but I was like, "Ah, no, not this time, but next time for sure," and I think they do some winter ones too. I'd really love to go back in the winter and, like, get out to Silverton in the winter, and I think you made a good choice.
Yeah, well, because I guess for people who don't know, I had my dog with me, and so the dog sitter couldn't have them in the evenings. And so I was like, I could leave them in the car, but it was kinda cold for my oldest dog, and then also because the train ended up being gone for much longer than originally planned, I would have felt terrible for leaving him alone for that period of time, but let's see, Wednesday? Wednesday is a very short day where we just have a couple of talks, the award ceremony, and then we leave at, like, 2 p.m. Tuesday is really my favorite day of the
Yep.
conference because it's, like, the full day, you're doing everything, and then Wednesday is kind of just, like, a closeout period. I don't have much to say about Wednesday,
Same,
unfortunately.
same. Me either. Like I said the Tuesday's the meat and the potatoes of it. I feel like it's the fun day. You're out doing excursions, and I think you're a little bit energized and everything. And then Wednesday, yeah, you're just kind of like I said, closing out. The awards are kind of long, and I see stuff throughout the year, I guess, on nominations and whatnot. But when it comes to the awards each year, I'm like, wait, who decides who got nominated, or how did I like who voted, and all this. So I always have questions about it. I need to pay more attention throughout the year on all of these things and nominations and whatnot because I think it's really cool that they do that and recognize a lot of people. But I'm like, wait a second, I wanted to vote on that, and yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
did I miss the chance, or like how is it set? But said it's super cool that they recognize so many different people throughout media, and it's just the chance to get more media in front of everyone who's there as well. But then yeah, after the wrap up, it's like, all right,
Everyone
now
just
like
leaves. It's, like,
yeah,
very abrupt. It's like, "Okay,
totally.
bye."
Yep, see you next time.
Did you have any major takeaways, like, big things that really stuck with you after this? It doesn't even have to be one of the talks or something, like, could be just a conversation you had.
It's always the networking. I mean, just meeting some different people there. Like one of the gals I met from, actually two from Durango, MJ, who was a speaker and works for Hest. She's from Durango. She was just awesome and great. I went to one of her talks, and another gal there, Trip Outdoors. I think they sponsored just meeting the people who attend and hearing like just the different ways that they're involved in the outdoor industry. For me, that's what it mostly is about, is the networking part. If I can get something and learn something from the sessions, that's like an added bonus for me. But there's not a lot of opportunity to get out there in the world and network. Like, I mean, you really have to find it, and it can be hard to do. Again, when we run like our like solo self-sustained or self-supported shows, you can't make it to all of the things, or as we talked about too, they're not oriented for media. So I always feel a little weird showing up at a trade show and then trying to talk about my podcast because, like I said, they're there to talk to retailers or something. Yeah, networking's the number one thing. So I got to meet a couple people that I can't wait to follow up with. And I mean, that's why I have a podcast, is because I love talking to people. So it's great to go to the event for that reason, and connecting with people that I got to meet last year and stuff. It's like I got to meet you in person last year at Outdoor Media Summit. And yeah, it's just it's so wonderful for that. That's the best part for me.
I think I agree. I did learn a lot during the sessions that I went to, and I guess the one on Wednesday that I took the most away from was the YouTube one with, like, Craig Adams and Steven, but the networking is such a big thing for me. I think that you resonate with this a lot as someone who is kind of like a smaller brand. There aren't a lot of other opportunities where we not only get to speak with people who work with brands, but then also other media professionals and kind of talk about what are some of your struggles right now or what's going really well. Or for me, because I have been a freelance writer for a long time, I get to meet a lot of the editors that I only ever correspond with over email. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, you're real.
Yeah, yes.
And then you can hear a little bit more about some of the things that they're working on and want to be working on. And I also think selfishly, like meeting those people in person, it keeps you at the top
Mhm.
of their list for freelancers because they're like, oh, yeah, I talked to Meg at this show about XYZ and she'd be a good fit for this story. And so it is kind of a lead generation tool. I mean, all
Yep.
networking really is, but I think that that's my favorite part of the show. And it's only really possible because of the size.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. It makes everyone feel approachable. The main and key takeaway for us is the in-person connection it creates, and how, important it is for those in a world that has become so disconnected and virtual, that these meetups really do matter. And that is the biggest thing, that like connecting in person for all of us, like digital storytellers or print storytellers, that we have to still see each other.
We do. We have to still see each other. And I guess one thing that I'll say before we jump off is that next year it is in Asheville, North Carolina, which praise be that it entered the East Coast finally, because I feel like the East Coast does not get enough love in terms of outdoor industry events.
Yeah, it does not at all, and I'm excited because I have to make sure I go make it happen, because I've never been over in the East
You've
and
never
explored.
been there?
No,
You would love it.
most East I've been is Michigan, and got to explore a lot around there, but if anything else, it's been like a layover, and so I'm like, I really wanna go actually get out, explore, really see what all the East Coast folks I talk to, find out what it is they love about it, which I can imagine, obviously, but I wanna experience it. Thank you all for listening to this episode. Please do us a huge favor and go like, share, follow the show, the Terranet Podcast and the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast. Sharing, liking, subscribing, all that helps so, so, so much. You have no idea. It's the quickest, easiest, freest way to do it, and really helps us small independent podcasts so much. So thanks again for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.